Action step 11 is simply create policies. You can help set your state or local government up for success by creating policies on web and mobile app accessibility. And then here we have a link to the Small Entity Compliance Guide on ADA.gov. I will tab to this now. We have a section titled Creating Policies on how you will make sure your web content and mobile apps are accessible. One note before we continue, I highly recommend you have just one digital accessibility policy, and then within that policy, you can separate sections for web content and mobile apps if you so choose. But then reading further down, we have a paragraph. There are lots of topics that you might include in your government's policies, depending on what your needs are. So for example, your government's policies might explain what your government staff should do to make sure that the content they are posting is accessible. Identify a staff member to coordinate your government's efforts to comply with this rule and answer questions from other staff members about how to make content accessible. Describe how staff will regularly test your government's web content and mobile apps. Explain the steps staff will take if a person with a disability asks them to make content accessible that falls under an exception to the rule. And an accessibility policy can be quite expansive. So right here, these bullet points are a really good start on different sections and different content, different material that you might want to include in your digital accessibility policy. But this is going to be extremely helpful. And of course, if you're a larger public entity, you're going to have a digital accessibility policy. But even if you're a very small entity, I highly recommend that you have a policy in place because it makes it so much easier to organize your efforts and then have this document that you can refer back to that sets out exactly what needs to happen, what your organization's approach is to digital accessibility. So this is an extremely helpful document, and in the links for this video, I will include a video where I go over how to create an accessibility policy. Also, I am currently creating a course on how to build an accessibility program. And this course will be extremely helpful as you are working towards compliance with this web rule for Title II, because what you will find is that you need to organize your efforts. And so the accessibility policy is one part of this, but then you also need to know everything that goes along with it, how to execute, how to make sure that everything is going to fall into place, how to make sure that you're going to meet your deadlines. There's just so much involved here in creating an accessibility program. It's not necessarily that complicated, but there's a lot of information that you need to be aware of so that you can work through this both efficiently and effectively. So we don't want this to take any more time than is necessary. We want to be organized. We want to make sure that this is done right so that we are compliant by the compliance deadline. So I will also include a link to this course on how to build an accessibility program. This will also be in the description for this video, along with many other resources to help you with Title II compliance.